Thobeka and everyone in the room. There's a lot of familiar faces, so it's nice to see, sort of that in the community of business support and entrepreneurship that we operate as the EPI and the other partners here. There's good attendance too today, sort of we are 75 people in the room. So I'm looking forward, and I know I've seen what Div is going to deliver. It's not an easy topic because we are, sort of stuck in wanting to wish the best, but sometimes there are some difficult decisions to take. And the framework that we'll present here hopefully will help those entrepreneurs, and if we are practitioners, the businesses that we support.
Awesome, thank you, Christoff. Dev? Okay.
Good morning, colleagues. It's a privilege for me to be spending the morning with you. I'm hoping that we can have a very live discussion. So I'm looking forward. Thanks, Thobeka.
Great, thank you, Dev. Carol, do you want to say hi to everyone? The best man of this whole process.
Morning, Thobeka. Morning to everybody. Yeah, looking forward to a very exciting and I think a very important webinar. And what is great, I think, is this is not just a webinar. There's a lot to follow up on after this webinar. So looking forward to this great opportunity. Thanks.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you very much. Well, to kick us off, we're going to start off with everyone who's in the room, the 81 of us. I have a poll. And the purpose of this poll is really to you all to answer, whether it's multiple choice or you have more than one option. And already people have started to answer which descriptions apply to you who are in the room. You may select more than one option. So some of you might be owners or co-owners of businesses. Some of you are practitioners and supporting business owners. Some of you are in your business, which is in distress. I do not have a turnaround plan. Some of you might not have. Some of you might have a turnaround plan that works or might not work. Please do look at these and answer them. We are at about 47% of people responding so far. And I hope we get more people to respond. Bear in mind, if you're on your phone, it will just pop up. Please select your choice. It looks like we have a lot of owners. I'm an owner or co-owner of a business. That's a good 58% so far. Can we push it up a little more? We have about 60 people who have answered, and there's quite a lot of also practitioners supporting business owners. Wonderful. And then under the distress side, my business is in distress. We have quite a bit there, 27%. And we have about 75% of people who have responded. I'll just give you guys another 30 seconds, please. Let's see how we can get around that. It looks good.
That's really interesting, Thobeka. I was thinking that we would have more than a quarter of the people in the room that are in businesses that are experiencing distress.
Yeah. I mean, I think this could be good. I don't know. This could be good, but let's see by the end of the day how many, depending on the chats as well, how many questions or thoughts come around, how someone thinks, I'm under distress, and I'll stick around or restart as we've asked them a little later, And
then Dev, it'd be interesting to hear what you have to say about the percentages of people that have turnaround plans and that may or may not work.
Yeah, it's always a turnaround plan. You don't know if it's going to work. You find out through experience.
Okay, all right. So I think we can stop the poll here now and see what the results are. We have a good 83% of people who have responded. So 62% of the people in this room are owners or co-owners of the business. And then we have a lot of practitioners that support some of the businesses. And then around the turnaround plan and distress, 25% in the room are saying my business is in distress. And possibly of that 25%, I do not have a turnaround plan is about 12, and I have a turnaround plan, but it may not work is 11%. and they have a turnaround plan that may work, which is 10%. So that's pretty close, all that turnaround plan, and how many of you are actually VAT vendors. And 4 of the 73 have none of the above. Please, I would love to hear from that 4 that they none of the above. Who are they? Please put it in the chat and share that a bit. Great, thank you very much, Div, on those results. Anything else there, Christoff, Div, that you want to talk to a bit on that?
No, I'm okay. I think we should jump into the topic, Thobeka. But perhaps I can just, before we do so, and let Div, because Div is really, I mean, I've seen what Div is wanting to present to us. I think we should get to that soonest.
Yes.
If I can just share with everyone in the room, and I see we are 83, yeah, it's interesting that about 40% of us are business owners and 60% are practitioners that are working with business owners. So as practitioners, of course, myself and the other 4 of us, the 4 of us together, are of course facing the situation with some of our clients on a day-to-day basis, where they come to us or we engage with them, and where we have very unusual discussions. And at the EPI, we thought, let's do something to just bring that discussion to a point. There's a lot of talk about, we all know, you know, sort of what COVID-19 is, what the pandemic is doing, what the impact of the lockdown on businesses, and so on. But let's get practical in terms of the decisions that owner-managers need to make, because the decisions that they make now will influence how the future looks for them. And that's why we pulled together some partners to work with, and we came up with this idea: stay in business, start off with doing some free, accessible sharing of information that can lead into a bit more, you know, sort of in terms of workshops and courses and projects that we can support others to. So for some of us, the option is to revitalize, you know, or we may be actually in an industry that it's suitable for just kind of switching on business, and with a few tweaks we can go forward. Others may have to pivot and change quite a bit, and for some even it may be needed to close the business, so that the damage and the pain for everyone, for the owners, for the staff, for the clients, can be managed in such a way that it's possible for that entrepreneur to come out of it at the end, and also then start a new business perhaps in the future. Yeah, so focus on practical guidance, and then you know, sort of we are a few partners, so we are adding more as we go along too, you know, sort of. So I'm happy to see that the Cape Chamber is here. They've been promoting this event to us, and you know, sort of there's some other chambers and networks that we will be adding soon, so there will be more kind of logos for us to add on that slide. But yeah, and then just lastly, please stay to the end, because there's a special offer that we want to make to entrepreneurs that are specifically wanting to look at the business. So if you're a practitioner, you may have some clients, or it may in fact apply to your own business too. We shouldn't forget that most practitioners are running their own businesses too, with a decision-making framework and a workshop that we will be offering next week that you may attend. So I'll explain a bit more about that towards the end of the webinar.
Great, thank you, Christoff. So please do all stay. And on that note, we have one more poll before we give it over to Div. And the question is really about will your business survive? That is our next question. Please do fill in this, and you have one option. Our business is already closing or is closed. We are hanging in there and don't know if we can keep going. We have reserves but are burning through it rapidly. If nothing changes in the next 2 months, we have to close. And also, if nothing changes in the next 6 months, we'll have to close. As well as if the lockdown is removed soon, we may survive another 6 months, or none of the above. Again, the none of the above is going quite a bit there. Please, we'd love to hear wow, we have a lot of none of the above. Please let us know what you're thinking around there. What is your response to this question? We might not have covered. However, we are hanging in there and don't know if we can keep going is pretty high, is at about 21% after none of the above of 40%. And then the rest are hovering at your 12. If the lockdown isn't removed soon, we may not survive beyond 6 months. That's coming up. We're at 70% of voters. I would love to get at least about a good 85%. 100 would be ideal. Okay, we've closed it at that. And yeah, so we are hanging in there and don't know if we can keep going is at 25%. As you can see, Dev, the stage has been set for you to see how we can tackle this. And your none of the above, please do share what your thoughts are. And the lockdown is the next one, the question on lockdown, and you may not survive beyond 6 months. So those and everyone else, thank you very much for your response. I will not take any more of your precious time, and I'll immediately hand it over to Dev.
Thanks to Thobeka. I can really align myself with the outcome of this poll. I've also got a business that is hanging out there. It's a tourism business, and it's not nice to go through your emails, having to respond to the cancellation in bookings, not receiving any new bookings for the rest of the year so far, and paying back deposits made, and then wondering how long you can sustain paying salaries for 5 families and keeping them afloat. So I really appreciate your responses to that poll. So what we're going to do today is look at a decision-making framework, reshaping your business if it is distressed, or on the other hand, considering closing your business and starting a new one. That's always an option, and we got to know if we venture into that direction, how to go about doing that. So hopefully by the end of this webinar, you have some more clarity on that. Next one, thanks, Carl. So we're going to look at why businesses get into distress. There are different levels of distress that we're going to discuss. And then what are the options for us to make decisions on in the coming weeks? And then some thoughts on reinventing your business. So these are the 4 topics for today. If I can then focus in on the first, why do businesses get in distress? And that is just reflecting on my own experience. There are several reasons that businesses get into distress. Carl, if you can page on, please. And everybody knows running their own businesses, waking up 3 o'clock in the morning, and identifying, making plans, wondering how you're going to pay your wages when it gets around the 25th of the month, how you're going to pay your rent. There are some suppliers knocking on the door for payment, those things that keep you awake, how you're going to get hold of stock and materials, maybe the temptation to divert some of the tax money, holding back on your PAYE payments to SARS, not paying over the VAT, toying with those ideas. Perhaps there are some legal proceedings knocking at your door. So it's a stress that we all as business owners experience. And the cause of that is in a run-up of the stress that is building up. And I think with the COVID, the past 3 months, it was just the last straw. So if I can share my experience on why businesses get distressed, the first one, and to me the most common, is that many businesses are designed for failure just from day one. The business models that the entrepreneurs decide on when they start their business, when the business unfolds, is in many cases not feasible. It is actually designed for doom right from day one. Second is that many business owners take too much from the business, so the business cannot sustain the lifestyle. There are fingers in the till, and there's a huge leakage of cash from the business to feed his or her family, and the business just cannot sustain the family. Another reason that I've found in working with small businesses is that the response to a changing market is too slow. Sometimes opportunities come up, and there's not an immediate response to take charge of those opportunities. Sometimes there are certain threats in the rising in the market, and the response to those threats to the business is too slow. People hope they would be able to trade it out, that the wind will cool down, and they hope that they can continue doing the things they've done yesterday, but it's not always that. Then what I also found is that many of the SMEs that I work with are technically competent, technological excellence, excellent in their field, but not financially. So the profit that is made on the production line is lost in the boardroom. So that's a key problem. There's, in many cases, insufficient back office. In other words, record keeping is in arrears or not done at all. It's like driving your car blindfolded. You don't know how fast you're going. You don't know how much fuel is left in the tank. So the business back office is also lacking. And cash flow management, that's a huge problem. I come from a background where I was farming for 20 years, where I had once a year an income coming in. When I harvested my calves, and I had to manage my year through that once a year income stream. And you learn to manage your cash flow. But in many cases, businesses are different, and people really struggle doing the cash flow management. And then there are external risks. There are surprises upon us, like this COVID pandemic. Things that nobody could foresee. We did not save up for it. It came as a surprise over a period of 3 or 4 months, and it really caught us off guard. So we end up in a situation that we are in distress, and now the question is, what now? What should we do? The most important thing is that we must understand how our business works, and I'm sharing what I call a trading cycle with you. The cycle where you buy stock, you buy raw materials, you manufacture, or if you're a trader, you merchandise, then you sell your product, you collect the money from your debtors, you pay your expenses, you pay your own salary, and then you're back in the start of the next cycle. So there's a cycle that every business goes through, and the challenge is that there are certain leakages from this cycle. If you can build yourself a picture in your mind of a bicycle wheel, if you ride your bicycle, the wheel turns, and if the air escapes from the wheel, the tire gets flat. So if your trading cycle gets flat, cash escapes from this cycle, from this tire, you are in trouble. And what I experience in many cases, if we focus on the top right-hand segment, is in many cases businesses are unable to pass on increases in input costs, the raw material increases due to the, for instance, the Rand US dollar exchange rate. You're unable to pass it on to your clients. So your gross profit margins get pressurized. It comes under pressure. So that's a major leakage from this trading cycle. Next one is on manufacturing and merchandising, is that your production costs running away. There are certain increases that you can't escape. You sit with slow-moving stock or even dead stock. There are some inefficiencies in your production system. There are certain shrinkages, stock disappearing, stock getting old, getting obsolete. So it all comes to cash escaping from this cycle. If we move to the bottom right hand on the marketing side, and we experience that with COVID now, is that your customer base might be changing. People buy differently. There's different buying behavior. People are not making the same buying decisions that in the past, and that's got a huge impact on your business. What we experience now, and I had a discussion this morning with an accountant who was fairly busy during this lockdown process up to now, and now the next challenge is to collect the debt. In other words, getting the money back from your customers. So in many cases, due to COVID, you've got debtors that stall their payments to you. You struggle collecting your money, and some of the people that owes you money is now dead in the water. You're never going to get your money from them. Then on the overhead expenses side, what might have been a sustainable level of fixed cost last year might not be sustainable this year. So your whole fixed cost structure in your business is getting problematic. Your overhead costs are running away. Your landlord's still implementing the escalation clauses. You are locked in with high sunk costs. Just the term sunk cost. The sunk cost is a cost that is sunk into your business. You committed to that. You can't escape. For instance, if you bought a delivery vehicle and your payments to the financier is fixed, you cannot escape that. So it's sunk into your business. Your rental contract is a sunk cost. A lot of people accumulate a lot of sunk costs when there are good days. But when days turn bad, like we are experiencing now, they are stuck with those sunk costs. And then finally, people take too much from the business. They've got personal commitments, family commitments. So the business requires of them to sustain, or they require from the business to sustain this life cycle. And people are now caught in between the devil and the deep blue sea. They have to take from their business to feed the family, but the business cannot continue paying at the same level in the past. So this is, in many cases, what I experienced working with SMEs. When you are in distress, there are two ways of looking at that. And we go back to the Companies Act, especially Chapter 6 of the Companies Act, that guides us to say when we are distressed. The first one is called factual distress. And that is, if you focus on the left-hand side of this slide, is where your liabilities outweigh your assets. In other words, you haven't got enough assets in your business to cover the liabilities. If you look into the next 6 months, if you realize now this is the situation that I'm in, according to the Companies Act, you are financially distressed. Second one is what they call commercially distressed. That is when your cash flow, what you expect in the next 6 months, is too small to cover your financial commitments. That is called commercial distress. Now, there's also a clause in the Companies Act that says a director must explain to its stakeholders, implying everybody you owe money to, your suppliers, your creditors, your financiers, the reason why the company should not enter into business rescue when this factual or commercial distress applies to your company. So what the message is from this slide is that you must look into the next 6 months of your business, predict what your income levels would be, what your expense would be in the next 6 months, and then determine whether you are distressed or not. And if you don't explain to your stakeholders why you should not go into business rescue, according to the Companies Act, you are very naughty. So there are different levels of distress that I want to share with you. The first one is like just a little bit of distress. Things are not working optimally. You need to enhance your performance. There are certain fine-tunings that you need to do in your business. So to me, that's the first level of distress. The second level is redirecting the business. Informally, you do it in-house, make certain adjustments, and you could overcome. The next level is where you have to approach your creditors and formally negotiate compromising on some of your debt. The option that your creditors have is that you propose a certain compromise to them. If they don't accept them, they have the prospect of losing you and writing off the debt if you enter into liquidation. So it's their choice. There's a formal procedure. It's Section 155 of the Companies Act that allows for that. And in our workshop next week, we'll go into the details of that. Then the next level of the stress is business rescue, where you formally enter into an arrangement with your creditors on how you're going to manage your business in the coming 2-3 years, how you're going to downpay them. They vote on it, and you've got certain protections in the Companies Act, so that the vultures do not come and prey on you during this period of business rescue. And then the deepest level of the stress is where there's no hope. The only option is to go into liquidation. And my experience with liquidation is that it's only by pure coincidence if something remains left for yourself to get from your business once it's in liquidation. That is now with apology to some of the liquidators in this room. So graphically, if I can share those levels with you, to the left of the screen is what we call an underperforming company. You need to improve your revenue and your finances. Some of the symptoms, declining profitability, decreasing market share, you've got cash flow restrictions. So you need to make some adjustments in your business to optimize your results. But still, the business is survivable. Then if we go into levels of financial distress, moving towards the right-hand side, like an informal turnaround, to me, it's the early stage of distress. You need to reduce your debt. Still, you have your declining revenue, increasing costs, overheads running away with you. Sometimes you've lost your competitive edge. Maybe there are new technologies on the market. Some of your processes might be obsolete. So it's a more direct intervention. It's a more direct redirection of the business. Sometimes you need to stop certain product lines. You need to stop doing certain things. You need to start doing other things. You need to do certain things differently. And that is what we call an informal turnaround. Then, towards the middle of your slide, is the compromise, which Section 155 provides. To me, that's a medium level of distress. Your creditors need to come to the party if they don't want to lose everything. So you're struggling to pay your debt. You need to consolidate your debt. You need to get some extension from your debtors, payment plans. So you need to put a formal compromise on the table, reach agreement with them. And then there's also a process to have it formalized through the court. And once it's formalized through the High Court, it becomes an order of the court to implement that. Business rescue is the next level. It's highly distressed. But remember, business rescue is not for a terminally ill business. In other words, if the business has got cancer at level 4, business rescue is not for those businesses. Business rescue is for a business, and I see some of those businesses in this present situation. For instance, a business that is viable, it's got a healthy sales pipeline, but one of its biggest clients went into liquidation now during this COVID period. The business is going to lose a lot of money, but that does not affect the inherent viability and the profitability of the business. So the business is still rescuable. It's now struggling to pay its creditors, but there's hope, and the business can survive. That is the type of business that goes into rescue. And then finally, before we take our next poll, the right-hand most side of the slide is critically distressed businesses. They need to consider a wind-up. There's no hope for the business to survive. So that is the type of business that enter into liquidation. Thobeka, so if I can leave you with that, I think there's a poll now, and then after the poll, I will continue.
Thank you very much, Dev. Just a couple of things. I do see the three hands, Nuri, Jean, and Dominique. We will give you a moment a little later. But I also see there's a question there, Dev, before we get into your next part, really on the decision making. I am going to put a little question in the chat, really, and you can take it over to the question side as well. And really the question I'm putting through to all really is about which challenges are you facing and that is causing your business to distress. Okay, so think about your business and what challenges are you facing at the moment, right? So while you're thinking about it, and share it in the chat, Dev, there's also a question in the chat, and I don't know if you in the question and answer section where Maroka is asking a question on, are liabilities and assets not within the commercial sphere, technically speaking? Just give you a moment with that. I don't know if you will respond to that a little later in the next section of your discussion. But you can think about that, and I'm looking forward to hear from everyone in the room to answer the question that I've just shared in the chat. Which challenges are you facing that are causing your business to distress? And it looks like our three hands have gone down to two for a little later. We will come to you, Dominique and Nuria. Are you able to answer that question now, Dev, or?
Yeah, the assets and liabilities one.
Yes, please.
Yeah, that refers to the formal definition of distress. The assets and liabilities refers to the balance sheet, and that is whether you have sufficient assets to cover your liabilities. That is looking at your balance sheet. And that is what they refer to as factual solvency or insolvency. The other one looks at your income statement and your cash flow by considering the question whether you will generate sufficient cash flow in the next 6 months to pay for what you need to pay. In other words, your expenses, your loan repayments to your financiers. So that is a profit and cash flow question. And you need to consider both. In other words, you've got to look at your ratio of assets to liabilities on the one hand, and on the other hand, you've got to look at your cash flow. Question is, are you making enough profit? Mm-hmm. And if you are making profit, will sufficient cash from that profit come into your business to cover your expenses during the next 6 months? And that is what they call commercial solvency. Now, very important is like having two eyes. So you've got to keep your one eye on the balance sheet. You've got to keep your other eye on your cash flow. Don't close one eye. You've got to have both eyes open the whole time. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Dev. Christoff, can I pull you in here? Let's see what's happening in the chat, or any thoughts you want to say. Go ahead.
Yeah, so no, thanks for the comments in the chat, and it's great to see that we're kind of spreading quite wide in terms of the reach to, even into Botswana, I think, was from Botswana, I think,
yes.
And, Limpopo, spread, and so on, so Ida, Marina, Max, Lena. So it's nice. It's also new names of people that I haven't engaged on these platforms before. So welcome to those people specifically, and specifically those of us that are facing real challenges. And I think I just want to pause on this, Thobeka, because it's not easy. So we can clinically look at, and we need to clinically look like the stuff that some of the like the laws, but there's a lot of emotion here too. Mm-hmm. And we shouldn't underplay that. So I see, for instance, Mbuyazwe commented there on staff morale, clients holding back on purchasing decisions, changing marketing strategy, and so on. So it's both the hard facts of business that we need to account for here, and the emotional stuff, the psychological stuff, not only for our staff, for ourselves too, you know, sort of, because there's a lot of weight on our shoulders. And I think we should recognize that if we can come to the point where we can use the tools that are available for us to take some of that pressure off our shoulders, that it can really improve our own health and experience of what's happening, but ultimately it can also be better for our businesses. And I'll be speaking a bit later on a planned workshop for next week that I hope many can attend. I see there's some requests for some of the content, you know, sort of, so it belongs to the region, and you can forward us an email to info@theepi.org, and we can forward that to region to consider if you want to use some of the content being presented here today. But the opportunity is there next week, Thursday afternoon, to join us on a workshop that we're going to host too. So I just wanted to note that. And then I see Margaret also has something similar in a comment there, you know, sort of a client not paid, you know, sort of, and those kind of challenges that we are facing. So when we get to the last half an hour, we've got 90 minutes together here, we can delve into those things a bit more. So for those of you that can stay on for that, I think that's kind of where we can get practical in terms of the detail of individual people's requests too. And I see there are a few Q&A posts on the Q&A button, which makes sure that we actually will cover those questions. So I'm looking forward to actually addressing those things too.
Great, yes, and it's a great opportunity for all of us to kind of network and get to know each other, and you never know, you could have possible clients or collaborators within the space. And I think really also that as much as you usually go to events and you have that networking platform to meet each other face to face, that last 30 minutes, if you can be here, is that opportunity, because now suddenly you will engage and hear people give feedback. At some point, some of the people who might have their hands up still, we'll invite them into the room and they can say something on the video as well if they are more comfortable. Because I know some of us are not very comfortable with typing, and English can be a real challenge, right? Especially when we have other languages that we're also tackling within our day-to-day language of English. Anyway, yes, so I would just like to share that as well. Thank you very much, Christoff. And this has also given, I think, Div an opportunity to really look at some of the questions. And I think some of these might be answered as we go along anyway. And there might, and you might think, oh, okay, I've made a decision. I don't need that answer yet. So please stick around. Div, say gereed.
Thank you, Thobeka. And I must say, before I continue, I'm so excited for the people from Hoedspruit in the room. I had a wonderful experience in Hoedspruit just before lockdown, yes, with a client called the Hoedspruit Hub. And,
oh, you know them too, yes.
Yeah. And yeah, so I hope opportunity will come to go back to Hoedspruit one day.
Yes, and I like Hoedspruit too, actually. So it's very close to me. Yes, yeah. But anyway, let's not talk about. We'll chat over coffee one day.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Okay, now let's get to moving forward. I think by now you know whether you're in the stress or halfway there or on your way there or whatever the case is. Now, moving forward, there's a certain framework for decision making that I would like to share with you. If we can again take this from the left-hand side of the screen, the first question to ask is whether you are solvent or insolvent. If you are insolvent, both definitions apply. In other words, your liabilities outweigh your assets, and it's not possible for you to pay for your commitments that's coming up. The way to go is to stop trading and to consider liquidation. If you are solvent, in other words, you still have some assets that outweigh the level of your liabilities, there's still cash coming in, then you can, if we take it from the top, you continue trading and you start restructuring your business. Alternatively, second from the top, you continue trading and you initiate the process of compromise with your creditors in terms of Section 155 of the Companies Act. Thirdly, in the middle, you continue trading, but you consider business rescue. Now, in business rescue, there are two outcomes. The first is through the process you can return to solvency, or during the process, if it becomes clear that the basis for recovery has fallen away, it's not possible, then there's also a process of doing a structured wind down during the business rescue. So we've done those in the past. And then the next one, also in red, second from bottom, you could be solvent and you decide you're going to start something new. So you immediately stop trading and then you initiate a winding up of your business. That is done also in terms of the Companies Act 2008 and the 1973 Act. So it's called winding up a solvent company. That is also possible. And sometimes that is the route to go. You can see problems coming 12 months into the future. You know your business is heading in a certain direction, but still it's solvent today. So it's possible to walk away from your business if you follow that procedure. So that basically is the framework. I want to spend some time on the top one, the restructuring one. In our workshop next week, we're going to get our hands dirty in the other options. But for now, looking at a distressed company that is still solvent, you continue trading, but you face restructuring your business. So the basic challenge in restructuring your business is to increase your sales and increase the margins. Looking at your effectiveness is doing the right things. There could be perhaps certain things that you should stop doing, certain product lines that you must stop, certain customer groups that you must stop serving because there's no money in it. There are other customer groups that generate far higher margins that you've got to direct or redirect your attention to. And then lastly, increase your efficiency. In other words, doing things right. Your efficiency in terms of your production line, your merchandising of your stock, increasing those, the way you do things and do it better. So that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin in restructuring your business is to decrease your production cost, to see how that is possible. Very important is look at the overhead costs. Overhead costs, we keep on accumulating in good times just to find ourselves in trouble in bad times. Look at the vulnerabilities in your business. Where are you vulnerable? To which customer groups you are vulnerable? And then identifying unproductive assets and resources. Seeing how you can turn those unproductive assets into cash. In other words, if I can go back to my analogy of the bicycle wheel, See how you can turn that into cash to inflate your tires so that your trading cycle can turn faster, because every time the cycle turns, you make a gross profit. So sometimes it's important to step back, to cleanse yourself, your business, and to be able to put your business on a better foot. So what you do is on the next slide. In restructuring is first to analyze, looking at your value platform, your profit drivers, and your cost leaders. Now I'm going to explain what I mean by a value platform. If I'm, for instance, in a tourism market, my value platform would be beds. So the more beds I have to rent out, the bigger my value platform. If I'm in a property management company, my value platform is my square meters that I can rent out. So the bigger my platform, the number of square meters that I can rent out to tenants, the better for my business. Like in a tourism business, the more beds I have, the more bed nights I can sell. So that is the platform on which my business is built. For instance, for tourism, it's bed nights. For a property company, it's square meters to rent out. And it's very important to understand what is the value platform of your business. What is your bed nights? What is your square meters for your business? You've got to identify that. It's different for each business. Secondly, you've got to look at profit drivers. For instance, if I'm in a tourism business, my profit driver is my occupancy percentage. So if my value platform is my beds, my profit driver is my bed nights. What is the percentage of occupancy that I can achieve? The higher my percentage of occupancy, then you can expect a higher income stream, better profits. Then on the other hand, I got to identify where my big costs are. What is leading my costs? It doesn't make sense to spend time and energy fiddling with very small expenses here and there. It's going to bring you nowhere. You've got to identify your 3 or 4 biggest costs in your business, and you've got to start working with those costs, whether it's payroll or whether it's your raw material costs. You've got to identify the 3 or 4 or 5, and you've got to drive those down. So this is what you start analyzing in restructuring your business. Then you've got to strategize. You've got to identify a strategy. And I find in many cases, businesses that are strategically confused. I personally believe you've got 3 strategic options in your business. You're the cost leader. In other words, you beat them on price. You take on the Chinese, the low-cost manufacturers, and you beat them. The other option is you differentiate yourself on quality or on service delivery. So you do something different. You offer the market something appealing, different, that attract your customer and make them buy from you. You're not going to beat anybody on price, but people buy from you because of the appeal in your product and your service. And they pay a premium for that. And thirdly is when you identify a small niche market that the big guys are not even considering to service, and you're focusing on that market. It's very small, it's very unique, it's very specialized, and you can become a big player in that small market. So to me, that's the 3 basic strategic choices your business has. A lot of people get confused they want to sell a superior product at the lowest possible price to the market. So there's some confusion. You got to strategize about your playing field, who your customer is, what your product offering is. I'm going to spend a few minutes on that in the following slides. And also, you got to communicate with your staff, involve your staff in thinking this through. Your staff knows your business maybe better than you do. So involve your staff, communicate with your staff, and let them help you in reconfiguring this. What you got to plan, you got to start implementing. You got to look at systems, structures, and procedures. The systems and structures of last year is not going to work implementing the new strategy. So you got to reconfigure your systems and structures. You got to set goals and you got to set tasks. You got to identify measures, and you got to build in incentives for your staff to achieve those measures, to do those things differently. So if you restructure, you're heading for a new direction, you got to do things differently, you got staff got to do things differently, you got to measure that, and you got to incentivize according to the new direction. Then you got to measure and monitor. So you got to have metrics, you got to measure weekly, monitor, and so on. So if I can move on then, now past the analysis, Carl, please.
Sorry, quick thing, Div. Just to kind of, we under a bit of time pressure. So I'm going to ask you to I don't know, drive as fast as a German highway that has no speed limit with a Porsche or something. If you can, just to make sure we don't miss out on a couple of, just to make sure we stick to our time. Okay, so for this one, you just touch a bit, just so that they get a feel of it, and hopefully some of them will be able to join us next week. Awesome, thanks.
Okay. Okay, Carl, next slide, please. Okay, so what I use is a thing called the business model canvas. I'm not going to explain the canvas. Perhaps we can move on to the next slide. Okay, so if we look at the canvas, we start from the right-hand side, called customer segment. So what the idea is that you think new about your customers, think what new customers, what other customers, what customers should you stop servicing, and so on. Then we jump to the middle, the value proposition. We got to think different about our offering that we put out to the market. What different, how should we need to present our product differently? Then to the right-hand top, our relationship with our customers, what should we do differently? What different relationships should we cultivate in the future? And then towards the bottom right-hand side, the channels of getting our product to the customer. Should we consider new ways of getting our product to the customer? One of the new ways is online. A lot of people now venturing into that delivery channel. And then to the bottom right-hand side, what new income streams can you identify? So if I can move over to the left-hand side, to the top, key activities. What things should we stop doing? What new things should we start doing? What should we do differently? What different partnerships should we identify in making our business work? On our resources, how can we get rid of unproductive assets? How can we turn it into cash? And then bottom left-hand corner, when we look at our costs, how can we cut fast, how we can cut drastically, and how deep can we cut our costs. And remember, cash is king. It all goes about how can you get cash into your business so that you can speed up your trading cycle. So Thobeka, I think with that, I can stop here if time is running out. The details I can leave for next week in the workshop.
Okay.
So I'll be happy to share with Christoff and Carl if there are any questions.
Yes, we do have. I have Nuria and Dominic. I'll ask Nuria in while she's unmuting herself. I know she has a question. I'm assuming it's a she. I apologize, Nuria, or a male. Please feel free to unmute yourself and just quickly introduce yourself and ask your question for Dev, and then straight after
I
that.
see, sorry to interrupt, but I see there's some people that are saying they need to go, and that are saying that they really want to know about the workshop. So we quickly cover that. So we quickly cover that first, and then we go to the questions. Then we know that those, sort of, we can go into more detail on the questions, knowing that everyone knows about what's going to happen next week and whether it's for them or not.
Okay, great. We'll do that. And after that, then Dominic had unmuted before Nuria, then it will be Dominic. Go ahead, Christoff.
Yeah. So, I mean, my question would be, and poll on that is what the next steps are for most people in the room. So, and I think it applies both to business owners and to practitioners supporting them in terms of our own businesses, sort of. So there are different options, different things that may apply to different people, sort of. And then we've got the options of being sorting things out yourself on your own, or being a partner, having partners that you can reflect with and plan with. Sometimes we rely on our accountants, but they may be focusing too much on the finances for us to get all the help that we need. Some accountants are really resourceful and can help you, sort of. Some of us have mentors or coaches or some kind of support system, advisors that are working with us. So if you can, while we continue, I think I'll continue. If we can keep the poll open, people can keep adding their bit there. But in terms of your next steps, what are your next steps? And I must be clear here that, sort of, we really, our wish here is that we can help those, definitely those in most need. Perhaps you don't have a business partner to plan with, or you may have an accountant that may not be able to help you. So, by the way, I see that that already 62% of the people say they're keen to attend the workshop that we're planning next week. So let's just jump into that. Today we're meeting here. There are 4 things that kind of is unfolding for us. The first being the webinar that you're attending now. So Carl, if we can just page on, I don't want to spend too much time talking about the webinar and so on. We all know what that's been about. Yeah. But the second one is the workshop, and I'll give you a bit more detail on that just now. So the workshop basically will be a bit more practical orientated, and there's some tools that we'll share with you. It's a paid for event, but yeah, so I'll tell you now how you can, because you're attending this webinar, can get 50% off on attending that. It's also an online event similar to this, except that you won't be sitting in a separate room. We'll all be in the same room, so we'll be able to see each other, and it can be a bit more personal. And we'll spend the afternoon going through that decision-making process that Dev has been referring to in much more detail, of course, than what we've been covered here, and also addressing what are how we can address your specific needs. Now, of course, as it emerges, there are people that have similar challenges, and instead of aiming to go to a consultant just for your own purposes, we're thinking that we can put together courses that may address that, and we've got some planned already based on the feedback that we've been getting from our clients, so that it's not a hugely costly affair for you to actually delve into deep. And those courses that we are planning are presented over 4 sessions, some of them over a month, over 2 weeks, and you may be interested in that too as we go along. But and there may be some customized, the fourth step, maybe some customized work that we could do with you. But let's not talk about that. Let's focus on the workshop, which is next week Thursday afternoon, and we've got some more detail on that. Carl, if you can go to the next slide. Okay, here's another poll. I didn't know we've got another poll.
Yes, but should we fast forward that and just have you go to
Yeah,
the...
yeah. Well, let's launch it. Let's go on to that poll.
So 55% would like to attend the
Okay.
workshop.
In fact, we've already had it. We already had that poll
Yes.
running. So we can step forward in the slides, Carl. We've done that together. So here's the special offer: is to get the 50% off. So normally it's with $5.95, and there's a R5 ticket fee, so it will be R600, and you can get R300 off because you're on this webinar today. We're using Quicket to manage the ticketing, and you'll get a confirmation if you actually decide to proceed with that, as well as reminders and so on. And we'll share the details with those that are intending to come, including some of the tools and so on that we'll be using. However, it is for this webinar. So after 1 hour, the code that we're going to give you now is going to expire. So if we can go to the next slide. What you'll have to do is you'll have to go to that website, Stay in Business. We'll type it in the text chat.
I'll put it in the chat just now.
Stayinbusiness.support, and you click on the practical workshop button and book now, and that will take you to Quicket. So there's the coupon code that you need to use, my, in small letters, 50. You just put in my 50 in the coupon. So you'll see as the Quicket screen appears, it will say, do you have a discount coupon? You click and put that my 50 in there, and it gives you the 50% off. Okay, so that's just the offer here today. So just on the workshop itself, if we can go to the next slide, what you'll gain from the workshop. So of course, Div has referred to the more detail, but there is some guidance in terms of creating our own practical framework. Now, this may be for you, or it may be for someone else that you know that you think would be benefiting. So for those that haven't attended the workshop, the webinar here today, we'll be sharing the content of this webinar with them, so they're up to speed too. So what you can do is articulate your direction going to the future and so on too. And by the way, it's not on the slide here, but we've got some tools that we're going to share. So including a feasibility tool and risk assessment tool that we're going to be using during the workshop. So that's it, sort of just to confirm then, the last slide there is on the address and the booking now workshop. Carl, if you can just bring that slide up for us.
And we've shared it also on the chat so people can click on there.
And there's two, yeah. Great. So I'm not sure if there are any questions, we can address them too, but let's rather spend time on discussing some of the questions that have been raised, and how the practicalities work for us individually. Yeah, so I see there's quite a bit, so I'm not quite sure how much time we still have, 15 minutes or so. So I hope we can.
Time is flying. It's 15 minutes, 16 to be exact. So we'll let Dominic go on for about a minute and a half, Nuri, and then the answer will come after both of them have asked. So
Thobeka, maybe I can also ask Div if he, well, I'm not sure if he's going to be speaking now, but between me, Carl, and yourself, maybe we can also answer some of the Q&A questions in the text. So please go back to the Q&A button. We'll be typing there something.
We'll do that too. Yeah, perfect. Yes. And thank you all for the responses in the chat on that question we had put forward. Dominic, are you ready? Welcome. Oops. You can be unmuted again.
Hello.
Hi, welcome.
Okay, I see the, okay, start my video. Okay, I believe you can hear me.
Yes.
First, I just want to say thank you so much for this. It was so informative. I just have one question. The business that I'm running right now, it's mostly transportation distribution. And I think most of the regulation are done by the government. Government is the one who impose, don't do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. And we lose in a way that we don't operate the way we're supposed to operate because of the government rules. Now, my question is how accountable the government is in terms of our loss that we endure during the course of those regulations. Can the government pay back us what we lost from that? Because I heard this issue of 350 per person who's not earning an income. I've heard that the government has placed regulation to compensate people who have lost something to their business, but for me it wasn't clear. I haven't got anything. I don't know if you could clarify something about that.
Okay, great. Thanks, Dominic. We will, if someone can answer that, we will let you
Can
know.
I quickly jump in there? I think we can deal with that quickly. So there's certain things that we have as business owners have control over and things we don't have control over. And I think we would love to focus here in our discussion on the things that we've got control over. So yes, government is doing those kind of relief schemes and so on, which is great. And there are processes to follow. And there were a few comments earlier on that too. So, but let's focus our discussion here, if we may, on our decision making. And I think there's quite a few astute comments in the Q&A, sort of that we could be picking up. So Dominique, if you don't mind, if we shift the focus a bit more onto what we can do in terms of our own decision making, as opposed to waiting for what government is going to do or not to do, then I think it's maybe the most productive way for us to get the insights from Div to everyone.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. It does take us to even looking at your canvas model anyway and having to repivot and come up with other creative ways.
So I'm not sure, Div, I would love to hear if it's got some if his eye fell on any of those questions that are posted in the text, in the Q&A text, before we go to speak.
Thanks, Christoff. My heart is with Dominic. I think we got to adopt the mindset that whatever government restrictions are imposed forms part of your new environment within which you've got to do business. Don't expect government to pay you anything. Government got to take from somebody's tax money to pay you, and I think the mindset should be, there's a new game board. How can I adjust my business to be a winning business within this new game board? So we got to accept the restrictions, how draconic they might be, accept them, and realign your business so that you can still make money and make good money within this new framework. Thanks.
Thank you.
you.
Nuria? We have 1.5 minutes.
Perhaps Maria must just unmute herself.
Yeah, I think she was trying to, and then it just kept going back and forth. She was unmuted earlier. Okay, should we then move on? I don't know, I've sent her a message personally, so I'm not sure where the challenge is there. Let's go to the chat then, the Q&A. Is there anything there that needs to be covered then, and then we can get to a closure?
There are quite a lot of interesting questions, and I'm afraid we may not be able to give justice to all of them. So, Muraka, you must excuse us, if we don't delve into the detail of reasons for, based on the graph that Div has gone into. But can we take Tyler's question?
All right. What's the question there?
It's a bit more about applications. What kind of assistance is there beyond, how can people be assisted beyond, sort of the government relief programs, I think he's asking.
I mean, just to kind of get started, personally, I've seen that the assistance is really about us all networking together and finding a way to connect the dots between ourselves. If you're a small business that specifically does recycling, for example, and usually you had someone else as your client who's now not able to help with other small businesses, then you can see how you can network together across the country or across the continent. And it goes back again to what Div has shared earlier on, and it's really just pivoting your business and being creative in the current situation sometimes. And sometimes these things happen most of the time in spaces of support, of like-minded people, of other entrepreneurs or entrepreneurial-minded people to find ways of, okay, let's collaborate and look at some things in different ways. I think
No, that's interesting because we think we must get a specialist. We think we must run to Div to get all the answers. But maybe some of the answers may lie in our network.
I was hoping, Christoff, you and Carl can answer the difficult ones. I'll do the easy ones. Just to reflect on Tyler's question in the Q&A. For instance, I know that the Institute of Business Advisors, IBASA, has launched a mentorship program, a COVID-19 mentorship program, where they've allocated R250,000 to kickstart this process, and I hope that corporates can join them. But the basic idea, and the program is on the verge of happening, is if somebody approaches the Institute of Business Advisors, they match you with a local mentor, and the local mentor and you start engaging to deal with your key challenges. So, for instance, that is a program that is coming off stream now. And I think he's welcome to contact the Institute of Business Advisors and see if he can get some help from there.
Thank you, Div. Yeah, Christoff has just shared it in the chat. Anyone, please do click on the link on that, because that could help as well. Anyway, on that note, I think that will be...
We ask Carl what question is noticed. He's maybe in the background, but he's got something to add, perhaps.
Christoff, yes, I think Leon's question there, although I think it's been answered in a way, but I think Leon's question is central to me in this whole discussion. Reasons for the stress, please discuss the impact of inadequate leadership in SMEs. In other words, this reflects on the entrepreneur. So I think it bounces back to what was discussed now, but I don't know, Div, do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, thanks, Carl. Leon's question comes to the heart of entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurship is about your response to changes in your market. Now we all know that some people make money by chance. The moment something happens, then their luck turns out. But the true entrepreneur takes leadership in his business, and he goes and looks for opportunities. So I think this COVID-19 is a test of leadership for us all in our own businesses. Very true from you. Thank you for that.
Christoff, Thobeka, I can just share. In terms of Div's structure that he went through in the processes, I just last night had a call from a client, and some of you might have been on the growth plan webinar of IBASA. Remember the business that I was talking about, which was in the retail art industry, and they just in June had their best month in 2 years. We're doing exactly what Div what DIFT sort of set there in process. But because they had a business strategy and a framework to work from, they could do that systematic. And the one thing that they did in since April was cleaning out stock and understanding which stock are old stock. Let's get rid of that. That brought a lot of cash into the business, and enabling them also to bring in better stock. But that also created a buffer in the cash flow cycle. But just doing the basic practical things. So there are ways. Yeah.
Yeah. No, completely. I'm actually, I think I push a lot the collaboration and cooperation and instead of competition, because a lot of programs that I've been running, be it local or international within Africa during this COVID time, has been around that. With the Sudan groups, you know, it's really suddenly people are working together in the team that I'll be doing training with, and they're like, oh, great. Or some of the programs that we've been doing locally in the country, where you have leaders of different enterprises coming together and suddenly they're cross-pollinating and learning from each other. So this is me pushing for workshops.
Yeah.
They work, and what you put in it, you'll completely get out of it as much as you can do it. I can't find the discount code. We will put it back on the chat again for you.
Oh, the discount code. I'll put it.
It's fine. I've just done it.
Another
Go
question
ahead.
here for Marina. I don't know. I mean, it's not about the printing business, but I think the principle is a good question here. If you're running a printing business, but start other services like cleaning solutions, can you still run it under the current business as an additional service, or should you start a new business? Christoff, you want to answer this? I think this is fundamentally a good question, irrespective.
See, so Dev said he'll answer the easy ones, so that's the one for him then.
Okay, I'll try to answer that one. Marina, I believe in focus. If you're in a printing business and you start something related to printing, do it in the same business. But if it's less related, like cleaning solutions, my advice would be start a separate business. It's a different focus. Some people run 3, 4, 5 different types of businesses, but each one has a separate business, so that you can have for each business a separate set of accounts, a separate focus, a separate strategy. So I can advise you to, if it's something different like cleaning, do it in a separate business and give it focus in its own right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Dev, I think you're 100% right there. That would be my advice too. And perhaps there's some additional benefit in that if you are, Marina, if you are an entrepreneur and you're out there to create new business and make stuff happen, to actually ring fence the risks into different entities is not a bad idea. Because as we've seen now, there may be some huge things happening, you know, sort of that you didn't have any control over, that kind of floors the business. But if those are separate businesses and you've been able to set them up into different entities, you're actually managing your risks very well. Because if the one fails, it doesn't mean that you as an entrepreneur is failing. It's just that business that's not doing well, and that actually needs to end its existence, you know, sort of. But you already set up for the future in running something else. So I fully agree with Dev there. I've got clients that are doing that as a strategy, you know, they plan it in that way, that their different business focus are actually housed in different entities. So I'm not sure if we can maybe address one. What's the time like?
We have a minute. You know? We have a minute.
So can we? Edmund has got a comment there on the government side of things, and then there were a few on the Q&A I picked up. We spoke about Margaret's thing. Max is talking about debtors unable to pay due to lockdown, what one can do, you know, sort of around that. And Ndileka wants to start a company with more capital. Presently, as a private social worker, debtors are unable to get due to misunderstanding of why I am in my community. The private social worker is a new name to them. you know, so she's creating a new category of business. And people don't understand why they need to pay for the service that otherwise may get for free. So that's more on the innovation side. And I think we haven't discussed that much, but that's a really important comment. And then Kiza, the big challenge for me is to increase capital in order to invest in new opportunity, business available as we are coming from lockdown. How to get access to funds when the banks now, I saw someone else share a letter they got back from the bank saying, we only forward business finance on a 100% surety basis now, you know, sort of, so really difficult to get hold of cash to actually expand new businesses. So those are comments that are still outstanding, and I'm not sure, you know, sort of to which degree we can deal with them now. And Edmund's comment is the role of government and how that can drive growth going into the future, you know, sort of. So Carl and Dev, I'm not sure if any of those strikes a note with you, but maybe, you know, if we respectful of time, we need to end up.
Christoff, maybe just on the last one that you've mentioned, it is true the banks would be turning very conservative, and I think it's part of the time now is where the banks will start pulling in the ropes. You will struggle getting access to finance from them. They will increase their security values and so on, or coverage values. So that to me is a natural process. Much more conservatism from the banks. They will rein in on payments and so on. So there's a public image from the banks to be seen to be helping, but on the other hand, don't expect any mercy from the banks. Those reliefs that they've provided during the first 3 months of lockdown to roll over your payments and so on, there's no free lunches here. You're going to pay for that. And they're going to earn interest on that for years to come. So they're making good money out of this. Don't be mistaken. Thanks.
Thank you, Dev. That's not depressing what he shared. It's just the reality and an awareness for us all to prepare ourselves to have different solutions. On that note, thank you very much to everyone who has found time in their busy lives to come and join this space. I'm sorry some of you might have not had your questions answered. I'm happy that we were here, and we're about 58 now, and I think it's the time we should end. Dev, thank you for your time, and the best and awesome gentleman, Carl, thank you for your awesome connecting of everyone, and Christoff, thank you very much for this opportunity for all of us to be here. And yes, is there anything you want to say as closure? And I hope hopefully next week we see some of these.
I've got a parting shot in saying I hope that many will take the opportunity to spend the afternoon next week with Dev. I see one or two commented that they battled with my 50 coupon code. Maybe they couldn't find it. Just email us on info@the.epi.org. There's a hyphen in there, so I will just repeat that. It's info
it's in the chat.
epi.org. Yeah, I'll just put it there next again too. So if you do struggle with that coupon code, we will assist you quickly to sort that out. So everyone in the webinar, you know, as long as you act within the next hour, will have access to that discount.
Great. And the hour starts now, right, Christoff?
Yeah.
Awesome. Just, yeah, to clarify, people think. Okay, great. So you had an extra 30 minutes for those who couldn't do it. Wonderful. Thank you very much. And we shall see you next week. Or at our next webinar.
Thanks, Dev. Thanks, Thobeka.
Thank you.
Thank you, Thobeka. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.